call the meeting to order. Of course, it's the approval of the agenda and order of business. I have only one addition myself, and that's an in-camera matter related to land. Yeah. Anybody else have anything?
I will be with the agenda with that amendment.
Seconded? Second. All those in favor? Opposed, motion's carried. It's gonna be hard to get that seconder going down without Adela. He's over there behind your back on the TV screen.
I think he's on mute.
Yeah, he is, yeah. Anyway, okay.
I can stay on mute, no problem.
So public input, to the best of my knowledge, unless Jennifer's changed her mind, there is no public input.
No.
Minutes of the previous meeting, September 15th, errors or omissions.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion, all those in favor? Opposed, motions carried. Public presentations, I'm unaware of that. Good so far. Yeah, I know it is. Okay, 6.1. Infrastructure and operations, J-class road proposed evaluation matrix.
Council,
Lauren,
for your kind attention. The recommendation is recommended that the council by the Department of Infrastructure and Operations that council considers the following proposed evaluation matrix and approve it as presented with the attachments. It will be used to evaluate the J-class roads within the municipality of the District of Chester for consideration under the 50/50 cost share programme for the NSDPW J-class roads programme. As we're aware, the J-class roads 50/50 represent the what we historically represented the top 10 that we consider as the
we
worst
submit the list
condition,
and-
and they tell us which one they're prepared to do.
Yeah,
So in order to strengthen the criteria, we've reviewed it, and page 2. Hopefully it's clear that the existing criteria that we use, which we wish to amend, includes the access and use, which is essentially the number of houses or residences on a street. The street classification, so that's really the type of road that it is and the potential traffic that it will carry. The road condition is the physical road condition itself, it's fairly self-explanatory. And the executive, from what we could gather from the previous way things were reviewed, was influences by citizens wishing to have this raised through council, and obviously your considerations. We're proposing that the executive part is removed, and the reason for that is that we wish to provide council with the facts of the matter, and the executive side of the deliberations that council makes, so that you're presented with the facts as we see them, and then your own sort of influences and suggestions and desires are taken into consideration. So that's a very important part. But I think that's a part that council itself conducts itself in that.
so it's not part of the evaluation criteria, but it's still we have the ability to make executive decisions anyway at the end of the day. So.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, essentially, it could trump everything, but we want to provide all of the
It won't be
facts
part
as
of
we
your
see.
criteria.
Correct.
All right, makes sense.
So do you want me to go through the summary of the existing evaluations just briefly, or should we get into the meat of it?
Let's get ready to get into the new stuff.
New stuff. Yeah.
So
Question though, do you have the percentages?
They are coming up
No,
later.
I know, on the existing criteria.
if you look at page 8 on the attachments, that is the existing criteria, which is a little confusing, I have to say, but nonetheless. to what was being used in the past.
Okay, that's good.
So the new criteria, so we want to include businesses along the roads. Again, it's purely on the basis that with the business, whether it's more traffic, you know, if they are parking based, so it would take into consideration home-based businesses and commercial businesses in the expectation that there'll be more traffic and therefore wear and tear on the road itself.
Can I ask a question?
Of course.
How many RJ Plus roads actually have businesses on? Do we know?
I don't know. I mean, I know obviously the ones in the village. Some of them,
Yeah, there's a few, I guess, in the village.
Yeah, some of them, yes.
for the most part, they're probably done.
Yeah, there's none in my area, no, that I'm aware of, no.
I don't think there is.
Mine.
Hill would have the spa.
Well, Stanford Lake would have.
Yeah, some, yeah.
some,
There's some, so the majority of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's a consideration which we think is worth acknowledging. Municipal infrastructure upgrades. So that's essentially trying to coordinate future capital work with the potential for the upgrade of the J-class roads, so that we're not paving it and then digging it up 5 minutes later, which is not good practice at all. Community services. So really that, again, it's about traffic volumes and usage. And so we've libraries, church, medical facilities, schools and community mailboxes. It's not exhaustive, that there may be others, but they're the main ones that we've identified on some of the roads. Again, it's not a blanket, all of these will appear on each of the J-class roads, but it still contributes to the wear and tear and the volume of traffic on the particular roads when we come to putting them forward for consideration. One thing, if I may just go back to the road conditions. So we've tried to propose that we align the road conditions with asset management standards, and that's an asset condition rating, an ACR. So it's 1 for excellent condition, 2 for good condition, 3 for satisfactory, 4 for poor, and 5 for hazardous. And we've mirrored that scoring system 1 to 5 in the proposed matrix on page 7. So hopefully that makes sense. I'll go into that in a little while if I may. So I mentioned community services. We've also attached bus routes for exactly the same reasons, that there's potentially more traffic, not only from the buses, but from parents dropping off kids as well.
Yeah.
Now, there are 2 other further considerations which I'd like to put forward, and would be very sort of interested in your thoughts. In that some roads are much longer than others. So, for example, Pig Loop is about 1 kilometre. Now, not all of Pig Loop is in bad condition. There may be sections of it that are worse than others. But with it being considered as one continuous length, we're sort of offsetting the poorer sections with the better sections. So we're making a suggestion for consideration that the longer sections are split up so that the poorer sections can be dealt with in isolation, but before the others. So it's kind of triaging the same road, but bringing the worst section to the top of the list before others.
Triage is a good term.
It makes sense to me, but I think whatever.
One note of caution with that, though, is that when you have the longer sections, and say, for example, let's use Pig Loop as an example, it's split into 3. There are 2 sections which are particularly poor. They'll take up 2 sections in that top 10 as opposed to just the 1, because it's 2 bits of Pig Loop as opposed to just the 1 continuous length. So that would potentially would bump down other roads, which would very much need to be addressed sooner rather than later. So it's just it's a logistical thing in terms
Well,
of.
couldn't we, I mean, it's one thing for us to evaluate them in sections,
Mhm.
but that doesn't mean we have to submit them to the province in sections.
Absolutely.
We could combine it as one, so we still get the 10.
Exactly, yeah, we could use that as an internal
Yeah, just.
method, but
Yeah.
it goes as one whole road
Yeah,
and let them decide whether it's worthwhile or not.
yeah.
The second point, which I'd like to bring to your attention, is the district-based selection process. What I mean by that is that each of the affected districts have their own league table. So, Councillor Wells has obviously got quite a lot on the list. And so we would carve out, this is District 3's list, and it would be ranked based on the criteria. And the same would go for the other councillors. Councillor Connors accepted. I'm sure you would be interested in the conversation.
I am so.
Well, I don't know if we should fix roads entirely based on district.
Well, it's.
I guess, I
it's-
have one in my district, so it almost doesn't matter.
Yeah, and I think the value of it is that it makes it pertinent to each council, so you can see where it is. And then it goes to more that executive decision making, which I mentioned earlier, so that you can say, okay, look, I'm getting a lot of calls or sort of interest from citizens about this particular one. I would like to see that raised higher on the executive decision level, if that makes sense. It's just an option I thought might be worth pursuing.
Well, it's worth knowing which districts, but.
I don't think it's a bad idea. Putting them up that way, but then we'll still have our main list
Correct.
and our criteria.
Yes.
Okay, so you'll still know which ones are 1, 2, 3.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that are on the list, but it just gives us a better understanding, I guess.
Are we spending all the money in Chester or some of it Western Shore? Yeah.
So my comments are, that's fine. I think we kind of already have an idea what district is what.
Mhm.
Prior to this proposal, we wanted to make it objective and try to take
The politics.
the politics out of it, but reality is that we need the politics in it, because sometimes if we just do it by facts, we may end up investing in roads that frankly, the public, there's a need, but the public aren't actually complaining about.
Yeah,
And we're ignoring roads that
they are complaining.
they are complaining about, and that can be problematic for us as elected officials. And so we want to somehow address roads that people are really complaining about, because we're supposed to be doing, trying to do what they need or want. That's what I think.
That means a squeaky wheel. Yes, sure. And they,
I think that it has to be a consideration when we're repairing roads that I haven't received one single complaint about, but then ignoring one with that almost every resident on the road has called me at some point. That's a problem for me.
We deal with unsightly premises in a very similar manner, but but we might know that they're unsightly, but
In
nobody-
government,
the
there are
neighbors don't care.
there's very many complaint-driven processes.
I don't mind having the part of the equation, but I would think if the general public would realize that if we holler in the streets, we're gonna get our road, that's got me scared that we're gonna get a petition on a road that's 15 on the list with every person on the road signed it, and we're gonna go do that just to say holler. That's my only fear of it, a consideration, and having it in there, I don't have a problem.
The trick with this is that when you just look at it from a list perspective, 15 on the list is actually a really, really bad road still. Because so many of our roads are in poor condition that 15 down is still an abysmal road. So it's not like we're fixing up a good road. It's still terrible. I don't think anybody's going to accuse us of fixing a good road.
No. Well, that's where the executive decision comes into play.
So
That's it.
just
We-
to ask
we
a
get
question
to-
on that. So in terms of the squeaky wheel and those who are contacting counselors, all 7 of us, in terms of concerns. So for an example, it could be the road leading to the rink, Pig Loop. And every family, every individual that uses the rink or goes to the rink could be encouraged, if they have concerns, to contact their area counselor, not just simply the counselor for the
Yeah.
particular road, that Pig Loop Road. So that would be quite interesting, because, you know, again, I don't know. I haven't got my head around it yet in terms of those that can put forward concerns, not complaining, because it's never complaining. But yeah, it makes it very unmeasurable in terms of the condition of a road and where we would invest the tax dollars. Yeah, so I'm still trying to get my head around that, but I guess people could be made aware of the roads that they travel on, and most frequently, they don't have to live on those roads.
No.
No.
So,
No,
yeah,
well, that's why they were saying commercial and things like that. because
Exactly.
Those roads.
Interesting.
Everybody uses.
Yeah, there's the user who
Very
doesn't
interesting.
necessarily, I mean, there's a mixture of art and science about this, absolutely.
Mhm.
Andre?
And that's why collector roads versus, dead end roads are separate. But what I wanted to say also is that how does this line up with how TIR actually selects their candidates? Because, for example, Pig Loop Road is 1 kilometer long. I can't remember when TIR have actually given us enough funding to repair 1 kilometer of road.
That's not.
And so, like, if we were to select that as our most important road, for example, would that be problematic? Whereas if we were to select 2 really short sections of road somewhere else, would that be likely to be more successful? I feel like, oftentimes we get focused on the road, but really what we're buying is I think, is a certain number of meters or feet of road, because we only get a certain amount of budget really from the province.
That's why having sectional pieces was a good idea.
And I think we have to be cognizant of that.
Yeah.
Chester Downs Road, which is, in my district, is one of the roads that's a problem for me politically. It's a fairly long road. It's 0.6 or 0.5 of a kilometer, I think, so maybe longer.
I think, yeah, I just think to Andre's point, it is exactly right, because obviously we had 2 roads picked, Adams Road and Meyer Road, and they're very short. And I think that has a lot of merit, what Andre said. And I think that may be an issue when we, if you want to do Pig Loop's long road, and the road that's in your area, Andre, is, how long is that road? I would, the Chester Downs.
Long, it's fairly long.
So that might be, yeah, I wonder if that, even if it gets all, you bring up a good point, because even if it makes the list and we submit, are we going to be selected because of the length? I wonder if how would we find that out? I guess I'm not sure. It might make it easier for us when we select, right?
Decision at the end of the day.
If my memory serves me well, I don't recall the province wavering from our priority list that we submitted. So if we submitted 1 to 10 roads, we knew it was unlikely that we would get 10 in a year when the budget's only $1 million provincial funding. But I believe they always selected first, second, and then stopped at some point. I don't believe they ever went to number 10. So so far, I don't think they had independent criteria,
I guess,
other than budget.
yeah, I think that's what I'm sort of saying. So, for example, if number 1 on our list is really long,
Yeah,
it's unlikely there's going to be 2 or 3 and 4.
No, because our share of the
Exactly.
funds are.
Exactly.
But if we had 3 really short roads,
We might get-
it could touch.
you might get more roads, but in the end of the day, really, I think what it comes down to is so many meters. It's really
Well, that's
they're
why
giving us.
when Manny was suggesting that we be able to break them into sections was, I think, a good
Not a
idea.
bad idea.
Yeah. Hey, Manny, what's next?
Which I got a question.
Oh, sorry, Terry.
Manny, on your criteria,
Mhm.
some of it are straightforward, as a business or doesn't have a business,
Mhm.
as a school or doesn't have a school. But then we get into road conditions, excellent, good. Who makes the decision if it's excellent or if it's good?
So each of the roads, actually, we did it this year. So it was, Public Works went out and physically drove those roads and took photographs and notes and catalogued each section. This is where the art and science comes in. So where you have roads where there are boulders sticking out and there's big cracks.
That wouldn't be excellent and good. I'm not-
No, absolutely not.
Hazardous.
Yeah, hazardous
I'm
and
just
all.
like, let me get to the question. If it's excellent,
Mhm.
why are we considering it?
Because it's still part of our list. It will be very much, it will be right down at the bottom.
For what? Bottom for what? For work? If it's excellent.
Exactly, yes.
So we don't want work on it. It's excellent, do we?
No,
No,
So
no,
why
if it's
do we-
excellent, we're not gonna give it that top.
So why are we giving it a one? Why don't we make it a zero? I don't know. I'm just trying to understand how you're doing this criteria.
it's part of, well, all of the roads warrant some level of assessment.
Agreed.
The asset management component that I mentioned earlier with the asset condition rating, zero would mean that it doesn't exist.
Okay,
So the minimum,
but you're still getting points.
You still get 1 point.
For excellent.
but what we've done here with the road condition, if I may just stay on that one, we've given it a weighting of 30. So that it actually, because we consider the condition to be
Big factor.
fundamental to.
I agree. I even think condition may should be weighted more than 30%.
Mhm.
My concern, I'm trying to get deep brain here. If it's excellent,
Mhm.
and it's got 30%, it's got a pretty good weighting. When it gets a one at 30%. It seems to me that's not,
If it's excellent, it's not gonna get anything close to the 30%.
It's gonna get, it's gonna fall it'll be very low on the list when all the calculations are done. A road that it was repaid the previous year, you know, regardless of the other factors.
but it may be the one that has all the businesses and all the schools and all the community services, and it's gonna be up there.
This is true, but that's where the executive decisions come in. That's where I would
I
say,
believe the executive decision, I guess.
Well, that's right, because I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, obviously, we're not gonna repay the road we just did last year, no matter how many schools or
It's
whatever.
excellent, I just don't even know, I don't believe it, that just doesn't exist because it's. Not 50%.
It should be at the
I think-
bottom of the
I think it's
list.
excellent.
yeah,
It will be at
It
the
would
bottom.
be. Manny, would it be accurate to say if you got 5 points, so you had a hazardous road,
Mhm.
and it was this 5 and 30%, you'd get 30 points.
potentially.
And a 1 would get 6 points.
Yeah.
Right,
That's-
so there would be,
There's quite a
there
gap.
would be material difference in the.
Except the excellent road, you may have all the businesses, and be getting 5 points for business, and
Right.
5
Yeah.
points for street classification, and 5 points for community services, and all of a sudden it's at the top.
Mhm.
I just don't think we're-
You make a good point there.
No, fair point, Sam.
Anyway, I think it's flat now. That's all.
I think that the road condition should have more weighting,
Mhm.
because if it's a hazardous, really poor condition road, I would like to see it get more than, 30%.
I think an excellent road also shouldn't even, if it's declared excellent, I don't think it should even go to the evidence. If it's excellent.
Stop
Yeah, but
there.
he's just gonna put it, he wants,
But his point, Derek's point.
yeah, I get
He could
the
have all the
point, but
businesses
he wants to give us a
and
list of all the roads.
Yeah.
I just think we have to take a look at what we come up with this before we sort of. I like what
Maybe
you've
it
done,
should
by
be
the way.
higher.
Let me be very clear. I like.
I think so.
I like what you've done, and it's a good analysis.
Mhm.
I'm a little troubled by
That point.
that point, that's all.
No,
So
So if we raise that to 40% and lower the other points.
I just trying to understand where that would take us once we do everything else.
well, this goes to my next steps.
Yeah.
So,
Let's move on.
Andre had something he wants to say
I
first.
just want to say one little thing here. The most important change that we're making here is not these small changes in how we weight them or whatever. The most important change here is that our ability to sit down and discuss what we think from an executive standpoint is the most important, because we're only gonna get one or two, and there's about 30 that need to be done. So in the end of the day, we can split hairs, I feel like, on the numbers or whatever, and there's gonna be whatever, probably 6 or 7 really urgent ones at the top, and we're gonna have to decide. And so I'm not sure that we need to get too hung up on a few numbers here and there, because that's only gonna highlight the band of bad roads, and there's a whole bunch of subjective criteria here that human beings are already involved in. So already there's been some subjective analysis, you know, I drove this road and it was a 4 in severity, and I drove this one and it was a 5. Well, what's the difference? I don't know. If you get 2 different people, they might reverse those. Does it matter? Not really, because in the end of the day, they both need to be done. And we're gonna have to pick one, because we know the province is not gonna come to the table for as many roads as we need done. So that's the thing that I think we would just have to be real honest with ourselves about what we're doing here. Is that we're narrowing it down to a bunch of roads, and then we're gonna have a fist fight here and decide which one of those roads we hope that the province might pony up their half.
I do like the 2 that have the highest rating, the 2 candidates. I think those are correct. That's the news.
I think some of the general public that was looking at our criteria would hope that we would put a lot of weight on the condition of the road. And I don't think 30% enough of it. I know we have to check the system, all that thing, but I just think that
Well,
the biggest
condition is
factor
the reason you're
should be the
fixing it.
condition. Yeah, and I think we should weigh heavier on that, because I think it's important.
I agree.
So.
So if we raise that to 40%, you just lower the other ones a little bit
Yeah.
in order to make up the difference.
No.
But what's your next step you were gonna say? That
So-
solved all this.
Right. So we'll amend that to 40%, and we'll.
I don't know if 40% is the right number. I mean, that was.
Well, you gotta decide on something. It's 10.
What do you think?
40%.
40% is better than
Just delete
30.
one of
Yes.
these.
40 is on.
Well, it's going to put you at the top of the list if you're in real terrible condition.
Mhm.
I can live with 40, I just think it needs to be the bigger number, and that makes it the bigger number, because that's the most important thing we're looking at, is the condition of the road.
Just combine community service and business together into 10% and give the other 10%.
That would work.
Yeah, I agree with that on the suggestion.
Okay, now next step.
On to next steps.
Yeah.
So, on the, I believe it's the 17th of November, which is the committee of the whole meeting, the next one. We will come back and we will present you with based on this criteria and this weighting, the list
All
of
the roads.
all the roads. We will split them out per district, so you've got your own to refer to. And if it's agreeable, I'd like to just highlight the roads that made the top 10 of last year's.
Yeah.
Just to see where they fall in the new criteria, so that you've got a sense of how
What
has
have we
it
changed?
Exactly. So there will be 7, because obviously 3 of them got picked, so there'll be 7. So that's the next steps. We'll discuss that on the 17th. The following week, we propose to come back with the final list, which will be submitted to the province.
Everybody comfortable with that?
I
Yes.
have one question. On your J road class list. Can you put another column in, or do you have what the condition of each of these roads is?
On the long list.
Yes,
Oh, yes.
and you have that, you have that information. Can you look at that, or something you have?
We,
Say Adams Road is a 3, Beach Street is a 4. Do you have that based on condition now?
we have a big, ugly spreadsheet with all of that stuff in it.
I'd be very curious to know where they stand and your criteria for condition, that's all.
So when
That's what he's gonna
when we come
understand.
back on the 17th, you will see all of these
Every
numbers,
J class road in the
including
municipality.
all of the factors.
But will you have the condition?
Correct. Yes, that will be part of it.
We need to know that.
Yeah.
Well, that's what you're gonna bring us.
One more question, and I looked through this list. Is the Commons Loop a J-class road? And if so, can you tell me which one it is on the list? There's a bunch of Chester Commons in here from Old Trump around the island and stuff like that. But you know what I mean by the loop? No, Andrew, the loop. Is that a J-class road?
It's on here.
Where's it on?
I didn't know
It's down there alphabetically, Chester Commons.
I know, but Chester Commons is a big area. Different road.
Oh, I know.
I'm talking about the loop itself.
It's the old Trump 3.
No, the loop. The Trump 3 goes out, and the loop comes around.
Yeah.
It
Which
says
one?
Onview Road to Civic 86. I don't know where that is.
Well, that's the old. That's a loop itself.
I found it, so.
Yeah, I'm talking about the loop that we're. I'm grades and then we're gonna be Mr. Kelly.
Hmm.
Jim Graves.
That's okay.
That loop.
That's a J class.
Which one is it in this description? I'm just
That's
trying
the Commons Loop. Or that's their Commons Road. That's their Commons Road.
Well, you must have a map of
On
which,
page one?
Yes.
Garrett, of the listing,
Yeah.
J Cross Road list, there's 3 sections.
So there's actually 4 sections. I'm just,
which ones are we referring to?
I'm just trying to figure out which one of these is the actual.
It's
loop.
it's all the same
It's all
road,
the
it's just
same
chunked into the
three
3 pieces that
sections.
we talked about.
So it's all the Commons Road.
Yeah, I think Chester Downs, is that different?
Very good.
Yes.
Yeah, so it appears as if Chester Commons Road is about 800 meters long. And it's chunked into a section of 250 meters, 235.
So you've already done this one in 4 sections or something, and that's why I'm confused. You're not a map, so
We can get about.
let me just help you out. I want to make sure, but that's the one of the areas I'm most concerned about. I just want to see,
I have a question.
that I can associate
Just
the
a
map
minute, Del.
to this list.
Yeah.
Just, I mean, you know what I mean by the loop? We'll talk.
I don't, but we'll talk later.
Yes.
Okay, Abdallah.
Yeah, I just have a comment. I looked at the list and maybe just for clarity, you have all the J-class roads there regardless if they're gravel. And I understand that they're J-class, but to make this a simpler process, maybe you should just list the J-class roads that will be pertinent to the 50-50 cost share. I think that would make it a lot easier. Plus, I mean, when you do your assessment for next year, perhaps maybe just a recommendation. I don't know. You guys know your job better than me, but to me, it would be a waste of staff time to go over and look at Lawrence Hat Road here and Swinimer Road and Adams Road and Meyer Road and even evaluate those because they've been done within the last 2 years. And same as the roads, some of the roads in Chester, that would save a lot of staff time, I would think, because you review these every year. So, I mean, if you kept a list of the roads that were done in the previous years, it wouldn't make sense to go out to them, I wouldn't think. That's just a suggestion. I don't know.
Yeah, no.
But-
We would view the sort of annual assessments based on, the top list. So we know the ones we knew were done in the last year or 2.
You're not.
We're not going to go out. It's,
Okay, because I just thought when you were doing the criteria and everything, okay, that's fine.
But to your point about the gravel roads, we can certainly split that out as well. So that's.
You haven't listed that.
You have paid for.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. We can highlight those.
Yeah, we
Make
can't
it clear.
resurface the gravel ones if they don't qualify.
So you're suggesting, just an example, Stanford Lake may, require some upgrades. Are you saying that because it's a gravel road now, that'll?
Well, this is only a repaving thing,
Repaving, okay.
so you can't get money to repave a road that's not paved in the first place.
They have to take that on.
That's a whole other project.
Yeah.
Annie, I just figured that. Okay.
Okay.
Now that I realize it's in sections, I get it. I get it.
Do you still need the map?
No,
Okay.
I'm good. I know Jack did. I just. When you said Island View Road, I was thinking of the Island View subdivision, and it's the Island View private road that goes down by Cody Stevens. I know exactly what. Sorry, it took me a minute to get my head around it.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. This is part of his work.
It's good exercise.
Yes.
We need a motion here.
For
I
direction.
think it's just a.
So you'll just go back and bring it.
Yeah.
So we'll come back on, based on the direction we received, we'll amend the criteria. Bring back the listing at a committee of the whole meeting for you to see how the criteria score the roads. You'll consider it, approve it or make amendments. And then it'll go to council for final approval, and you'll pick the roads to submit to the province for repaving, for consideration for repaving this year.
Sorry, Mr. Ward, I have to ask one more question.
Yeah,
When you have sand seal / gravel or sand seal,
Mhm.
that doesn't qualify. Sorry. Sand seal doesn't qualify for work.
Sandhill with the gravel portion of the road with.
One of these is again, the common road, something needs to be done. But one of them says sand seal / gravel, so.
That's the original, from the original 1995 list with the provinces classified as. When I was out there, it's all sand seal now, there's no gravel left, so. So it'll all be taken care of by the state.
Okay, so maybe we could update that.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Fire Advisory Committee options for discussion.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Wanted to take a little bit of time here to give an update and receive some feedback on our fire advisory project to get that going again, so.
Yeah.
And we. Yeah, really, council had approved a motion several months ago related to reestablishing the fire advisory. And we've been, part of that motion was to go back to the fire services with a draft and to get comments on that. We've been developing a draft set of terms of reference, and we've had informal discussions with fire service at this point. What we wanted to do was to bring this subject back to council to get your input and then go back to the fire services with a final draft for their input. The draft that we're looking at right now incorporated a lot of the review, the points of review with respect to the P66 subcommittee that was working on that review. So I won't spend a lot of time on these, but basically just an update, and maybe Tara, you might want to comment on that, but just an update related to the MOC council role according to the MGA. And it's mentioned many times that we may maintain and provide fire services, and we have the ability to make policy within that area. So if there's any questions on that, we can comment on that. But Tara, did you have any other comments
if
on
they have any
the
questions.
MGA?
No, if they're.
We can take it all over. if we want to.
I just wanted to give you a quick background, and then we'll go into the actual discussions and comments. But basically, the Fire Advisory Committee was originally a committee of council back in 1996. In 2009, we came out with a formal terms of reference and providing a mandate, providing advice and making recommendations to council on fire service matters. And that included representation from all commissions and all fire departments across the municipality. In 2011, under policy P66, we made recommendations or changed the terms where we split the committee's role into a governance portion and an operations portion. And that was basically the commissions representing the fire advisory and the chiefs through their own separate meetings, and the term of chief officers review was providing input into their commissions and then onto the fire advisory. So those had continued for some time, and but we did have some difficulties, and that was really in timely and majority supported recommendations coming to council was an ongoing challenge. So we had some concerns on the roles and responsibilities of the various stakeholders, and some issues related to communications with respect to the commissions and the departments, and including varying needs of each district. So in March 2015, we struck an ad hoc P66 review committee, and we reviewed in detail the terms of reference at that point. And in August 2015, we never came to a final agreement on the P66 review, but in 2015, we received some notice from the commissions and the fire departments that they wished to withdraw from the fire advisory committee. And at that point, we sent a letter to the commissions and the departments and suspended those meetings at that point. But important was that the council also at that point sent a note to each commission and each department encouraging them to continue to meet, and that we are always open to their input. So they formed a new organization to meet together, and unfortunately there was not a representation from all of the commissions and all of the departments on that committee, and it was very difficult for staff to bring back recommendations to this council because we didn't have a full consensus from all the fire services. So the FAC did not reconvene, and then eventually in January of 2021, we repealed policy P66. Then subsequent to that, council asked us to again go back to move forward. So with respect to the P66 review, we looked at what was working well, and even in the latest informal talks with the fire services, the FAC provided a great opportunity to share the ideas, obtain reference materials and advice from peers and staff, and also the opportunity to share recommendations for improvement in effective fire services. And it did serve as a good liaison with council here. There were some difficulties, and I'll just quickly go through that because we're still basically facing those difficulties. But we have 14 different bodies if you count commissions and fire departments. So that's 14 decision-making inputs. And they all have varying local and needs and perspectives. We did have some difficulty in working with majority versus consensus decisions on that committee. And we had some differences of opinion related to commissions as governing bodies and fire departments, of course, as the operational arm of fire services. So that led to long decision-making processes and lack of really strategic objectives for that committee. And we also did have some limited responsibilities or expressions of limited responsibilities, because all recommendations, of course, have to come back to council for approval before we implement them. So the current situation, the FAC is not active, and as I say, we have a request before staff right now to re-implement that as soon as possible. Right now, at this present, have no fully representative form for the review of the fire services. We have some committees up there. We have the fire chief meetings, they're meeting separately to discuss operational issues.
That's the
Yeah.
question. I know we're gonna get there, but because we're just on that slide around, the slide before, and we are gonna arrive at some sort of a decision today in terms of recognizing some of those difficulties, in terms of me to be clear.
Yeah.
So before my time on council, because it says 11, and I was here since 2012. So before my time on council, it was a committee of departments and commissions.
In 2011, it was a commission-based,
Yes. And I was, yeah.
the fire chiefs were under
Yes, exactly.
every alternate meeting was the fire chiefs review, where they met separately as fire chiefs and then
So, right, so,
moved that
right.
forward to that.
so I'm just gonna, yeah, so, but in terms of the decision-making committee, FAC,
It's just commission.
That was at that
commissions.
point, at that point in time.
P66,
It changed in 2011 to just be commissions.
Yes.
Correct.
Prior to 2011, it was departments and
Correct.
commissions.
Yes, that's right.
and so I don't really know, I should know how long that the FAC existed, maybe before my time on council, and what the difficulties maybe were at that time, because the departments and the commissions were both on that board. And part of
Yeah, well,
the-
that's what I was, we had at that point 14 decision makers around the table, and that was led to difficulties.
Right.
Of
Right,
I think
getting.
96, I think is the answer.
Yeah.
I think it
Yeah,
established
yeah, that's-
1996.
It was established
It was-
in 96.
But I don't see any other way not to have fire chiefs on that committee, because I've heard that was the issue that,
that's what my understanding was.
Well, you're gonna move
Yeah,
on to what the
yeah.
new
We'll look
committee's
at
gonna look like.
some options, yeah.
so it's 14, it's 14.
So I'd say the current situation, as I say, was, there is right now, with the existing committees outside of council, more operational perspective and less on governance and more strategic goals. But there's fire service representation and access to council still needs to be refined, and that is hopefully what we're going to do through the FAC. Also, I want to point out there is a change in some of the commissions. And so there's a lot of new people, and they have expressed to me what we can do from the council point of view to provide more education and more guidance for them. So we're looking at trying to put some roles. We had done that through Sam's help and everything originally, and we want to catch up on it. So on the roles and responsibilities, I'm listing here some options. Option one is we look at it being governance focused only, and that is on the larger issues, local, provincial, commenting and providing recommendation on local, provincial, federal legislations, fire service issues that are both coming from the province and the national associations, from FSAN itself, and also from the Joint Municipal Advisory Committee, which is still meeting at the provincial level, and also things on bylaws and legislations, P33, registration processes, WCD, Rural Fire District Act, we can put on the MGA. I know MGA was under review from the fire services for a couple of years, so we would be providing input on that. The other option would be then to expand the advisory to policy programs, standards, best practices. And that is the development of municipal fire service policies and programs to mitigate risk and meet the needs of these fire services themselves, and of course, the communities they serve. Making recommendations on municipal standards, best practices and bylaws, making recommendations on strategic plans to support and maintain fire services, and then involved in assisting committees and departments, commissions and departments with fire service resources, general rate allocations, capital and operational grants. So expanding that role in advisory to move forward on the mandate of that committee. The option 3 also, and these are options that we can mix and match and combine, but also would council want the ability to refer issues to the fire advisory, issues that are coming either from the public or whatever, to refer those to the committee.
Bruce, I don't really want to jump in, but what does the fire department and the fire commission want?
Yes, I agree.
Because if they don't want it, it doesn't matter to me.
Yeah, but they want the ability to bring the programs and everything forward to council. That's what they want.
Okay, and do they want, what's their membership request? What do they agree to?
I can't say that because that is a mixed decision
No,
at
that's
the time. But, right, and that's what we wanted to.
Yeah.
We have to ensure that there's representation from both the fire services themselves and the governing bodies. That how we want to do that.
Well, I don't,
Yeah.
maybe I'm just here or whatever, but
Yeah.
it would seem to me that we need some kind of representation from both the fire departments and the commissions.
Yep.
Or else it's pointless, because they hardly get, well, I won't say they hardly, but some have difficulties in communicating with themselves, with each other.
Right.
So, I mean, if I'm not hearing from both parties saying, this is what we want, then I have no clue what to do. And all I want to do is help them.
Can I make a suggestion? And it's just a suggestion. Part of the reason in my opinion, that the last fire advisory committee failed was because the fire chiefs wanted to be present.
That's very good.
I think all these people in the room with all voting rights is wrong. And I'd like to make a suggestion that you just go back to the group and ask them, will they be agreeable? The fire commissions are actually the committee. The chiefs are all welcome to come as advisories to their
Same as Dan comes
commission.
with me.
And be present at the meetings and be able to speak at the meetings. That gives them all a voice. Their commissions are there, so they're not a meeting a month away. That gives them all, I guess, the same input in the meeting. Is the reason it failed last time I was there is because the chiefs weren't there, so they had to go back to the commissions to ask the chiefs if they thought they agreed or this would work for their particular department. That was part of the problem.
Yeah, and that is how we're just checking base with you this morning, but that is what we're actually suggesting.
Well, that's what I want to know.
It's still though, having sat at several of those meetings, the chiefs still want to go back to the departments and talk to the membership.
Yeah.
So that dynamic of that leg and that having to go back and not make a
We may
decision.
always
on the
have
table
that. We
still
sometimes want to go back to
will
the
exist,
public.
right? Yes.
I
So
have
that-
a little bit of.
Oh, Tina hit her hand up.
Sorry, so, Deputy Warden Shepherd, I'm not clear on how it would be different as we were nearing the end of the most recent FAC membership. So how would that be different? You're suggesting possibly, I'm not going to put words in your mouth, so correct me, but you're suggesting the governing bodies, the commissions, and the fire chiefs would have input through their commissions?
At the meeting, they could be present, but they wouldn't be voting people
Only
before.
voters would
It
be
was
the
just the
commission.
commissions.
You know, I don't
The
think
chiefs weren't there.
I know we have the right to disagree
Yeah,
and
yeah.
to provide comments here, but at this point in time, and I don't think I'm gonna be changing that position, I'm not supportive of that. I'm supportive of my chiefs and departments and commissions having equal rights and equal ability to weigh in and have the votes.
And I respect that, but 90, but from my experience, I don't know when the chiefs and the commission normally would agree on how the departments move forward. And the last time when the problem was, a couple of chiefs wanted to be at the commission meetings, but because of the criteria, they weren't allowed to be there and speak. They could come to the public and be there, but they were actually supposed to speak at the meetings. This would give them, I guess the opportunity, to be in. You're shaking your head, no, I have no problem with that. I just made a suggestion that I think a committee of 16 and councillors of 18 is a very hard committee to control. That's why I think it would.
Yes.
Yeah, I just,
To answer that.
no, go ahead.
Well, I just agree with Tina. I think the chiefs need to be there and have a vote. And I'm a little unsure about Chester Fire Department, how that would work, since we now have this new committee. Who would be the representative for the commission part?
Chair of the committee.
It would be a representative from the committee.
From the
as well.
committee itself.
Not the village commission.
No.
It would be a representative as identified or voted by the committee. So if that was the commission
Okay.
representative or the village commission representative, then that
So
would be
be it.
voted by that
Whoever
committee.
they pick.
Okay,
Just to address Tina, absolutely, the chiefs have to be representative, but I've been talking to several of them, and as for voting, as long as each district has its vote and its say, the expectation is that the chief can reach agreement with their commission internally and then have that brought forward. But there's that, definitely the absolute representation has.
They have to be.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
Yeah. As for the actual final decision of the advice going forward, we hope that the commissions and the chiefs
Would sort that out amongst.
will work that out as the governing body going forward. So just going, I would think on the roles and responsibilities, I think we agree that we do want them to be involved in more than just the legislation.
Oh, yeah,
And,
that'd be
and
nice.
get them, yeah, so we'll include
It's how
all
we
of
can
that.
help them,
Yeah.
fix them, build them, and make sure that we're ready for the future. That's what-
Okay, the other question that came up was, in follow-up to Floyd, the role of the counselors on that committee. And we had originally had counselors having a vote, but we would think that it's more supportive role, and they actually never exercise their
No
vote.
need for them to vote.
That's,
Yeah,
I
so.
do agree with that.
Yeah,
We get the final.
basically,
Well, yeah, because it all comes back to us at the end of the day.
exactly, and it was, so we can get around that, or basically in a supportive role and moving forward, so. Again, the voting option, I think if the commissions and the district chiefs, with the representation being around the table, the final vote maybe by the governing body, but that.
Or the fire chief is gonna be sitting right next to his commissioner. and
Yeah.
They can't sort that out amongst themselves.
Okay.
I can't do it for them.
The other issue related to the P66 review really was around structure. Of course, the committee has to have a chair and a vice chair. There were some options there. One nominated and elected by the voting members. Independent chair being non-voting. One of the issues was there was some feeling that the chair may be biased from the point of view of the district. So one option would be to have an independent chair to move the committee forward. But that's something that definitely from a voting point of view, the chair would be a voting, but there would be not a duplicate vote from the point of view of he would have to vote as the
Same as I
district.
do.
As a district.
yeah,
So,
no.
Why wouldn't they just appoint their own chair? Like everybody else does? They vote.
we can do that. We can make that in bylaws. It was just to address some of the concerns from the P66 where they had expressed that there were some difficulties there, so.
Are you saying they want an individual person for the chair?
No, it's just an option if they want to.
It was one of the
Consider.
observations discussed during
Yeah.
the P66 review committee
Yeah.
was that by having the chair of the committee being someone who is a voting member of the committee, there was the potential for influence, right? For influencing the agenda, for instance. which I was
Yeah, on
interested.
The chair, as everybody knows here, has no special power, so just set it up so that it rotates every year.
Yeah,
And
that was,
that everybody gets a chance and then.
Yeah, that's right. It's 1 year
Yeah,
term.
Yeah.
That would work. Yeah,
that's what we wanted to put in was a term and a staggering
yeah.
term.
Well, the 1 year term, and they're all gonna get their chance, right?
So I think that, that would be a good solution. So,
Good idea.
motions and voting, of course, that was the big interest, all motions decided by 50+1 and 2/3 of, the voting members have to be present, for any business to go on.
Robert rule of order.
So, and then all motions, of course, carried by the committee must be approved before council.
Yeah.
So,
Unless it doesn't impact us.
and I think what we can do is go forward in the draft. Your suggestion is to have the chiefs present, but have we get feedback on that.
Well, that's right, because if they don't agree with what we just said, we're afraid.
The other question was on meetings and schedules. We had the chief operators, the chiefs review going every month, every second month in between the FAC. So we were actually looking at a bi-monthly meeting for the fire advisory. There are some options there. Do we want to consider just quarterly meetings? But I think to continue moving forward, it would probably go to bi-monthly now and then.
Yeah, and once they get stuff sorted out, they might not have to meet so often.
Right, exactly. So we could do that. The other ones are more operational, but basically, one thing we wanted to do is to get the minutes out and back, or have an action item list so we could deal with that going forward. So that's basically where I was wanting to get some input, and our point now is to go back with
Back to them and see it.
a draft and get them going.
Yeah, let them tell us. If they don't like it, tell us.
Yeah.
Sure.
So
So
any
much-
other,
Once we get that input, we'll bring the draft back to council for first readings.
Yeah, yeah,
First
based,
one,
based on what you hear from. I'm assuming that,
we'll go out. I guess
tell them this is what we're.
we'll go out to each commission and with the draft and then bring it back to council.
So again, so you'll do that in an email with the turnaround time.
Yeah.
kind of
we're gonna
thing,
have
And, you know, it's like, you know, in the wedding vows forever now, order peace or whatever those vows, are, right? So, you know, kind of thing. So, you know,
mean anything.
so, yeah, really, right? So, except in this case, it's in writing versus just at the altar. So, yeah, so an email out to each of the departments and the commissions and determine again, by a certain particular period of time.
We'll go out
Yeah,
with the draft and the each commission.
and the draft is proposed options around makeup of the committee,
We're gonna tell them what we just said.
Yeah, it'll be a draft.
That incorporates the feedback we just got.
Yeah,
correct, so yeah, so,
Say, are you okay with this? Are you not? What changes do you want?
correct, so, yeah,
so we should be able to move quickly on that.
Quick as they can. It's up to them from there.
Any other
Thank you.
feedback? Or- Okay,
10 minutes for taking.
good, thank you.
I'll put my hand up for that.
Yeah.